A garden without water will die. So that means that if you're going to be planting a garden or a new watering system, you have to make sure that the plants have the water that they need, or you've chosen plants and planted them in the right place that don't require a lot of water. So there's a lot of thinking and planning to do. If you're not quite ready to plant a new garden up or install an irrigation system, I have some other ideas than having something permanent. In this video, I'm going to share budget-friendly tips of watering your garden and ideas for getting some better value out of what you can do, even if you're in a temporary situation. The use of a terracotta unfired pot buried into the ground, an Oya pot, is something that originated over 4,000 years ago, used in Northern Africa and China. Here I've buried 4 pots about a metre apart to keep plants alive where I couldn't get more water to them. It worked really well. So easy to make your own Oya pots. They are buried. Get 2 terracotta pots exactly the same size, and just glue the upper section to the lower section with silicone and let it set. Once it's set, it's ready to bury in the soil. My soil, unfortunately, is so shallow it only can come up to about this level, but ideally bury your terracotta pot to at least this level here. Then you have your own homemade, cheap, easy to create Oya pot. Here's an area I've used my homemade Oya pots in a place where I just couldn't get water, and a pretty dry part of the garden against the house. So I've buried those as far as I can in my soil, which is not very far, and I've used a little decorative shell on the top to keep the water in. It's not the best situation, and when I get more soil I'll be able to put it deeper in there. But they work very well, and I just fill them up in the hot weather several times a week, just from the hose or a watering can or my water bottle if all else fails. That is a budget way that I used some hoses to create a mixture of drip and an ordinary hose to feed my garden in a flat that I used before I came to live on this property. So this proved to be a low budget and temporary situation, which worked really well when I only had one tap to create a gardening watering system for my plants that were waiting in pots to be planted right here. Worth a try. So again, a standard hose cut to length with connectors, a T connector and a drip hose attached to in a circle, which I made specially to fit these pots. They were buried about 10 centimetres below the surface of the soil, which kept most of the plants watered. I say most of the plants because there's not one ideal system, and eventually I had to change to an overhead watering system to get everything done. So having done the main part of the garden, there are some other really unattractive parts which are at the front entrance of this little flat. I created a garden which you would never believe could have grown. So take a look at the next few photos and see what you can achieve just by adding water on a timer with a few little bits of irrigation as needed. Check out what I did with a small patch and then some raised pots, which were very successful and had a lot of compliments. A small corner of the garden which just didn't seem to grow very much at all. Added a couple of watering hoses and on a timer, and suddenly they grew and looked beautiful. The pots were watered by hand. They grew into some really magnificent blossoms, as you can see, from absolutely nothing to a much more attractive entranceway, and looked really great. I was so proud of them, but I did have to keep up with the watering with a watering can. So you can do anything, just put your mind to it. There's lots of different ways of watering your garden, and in the next video I'm going to be talking about some of the more permanent watering systems that are basically self-watering that I've put into my urban oasis. I'll see you at the next video.